Hello everyone, I am Dr. August de Oliveira and I am proud to be a part of the Digital Dental Academy and to be a friend of Dr. Adam Nolte. So today I'm donating a course on digital hybrids. So making hybrids from just a digital scan, no models at all. So please stay tuned. Hello everyone, my name is Dr. August de Oliveira and I do an online course called Dental 3D Printing Party Online. If you go to my Facebook at August de Oliveira or go to 3D Printing Party, you can get some more information. But today I'd like to talk about model-free hybrids. So if you have an intraoral scanner, be it a Trios or a Medit or a Cirac, you may have been tempted to do some full arch implant cases. And I've done a few and wanted to share my experience with you on steps that you can do to make sure that these fit, that the bite is right, and the aesthetics look good, and you make something that is as good or better from what you could take with a traditional impression. As I said before, I'm August. I'm a general dentist in Los Angeles. I graduated in 1997. I've written a couple of books, Implants Made Easy, Guided Implantology Made Easy, and Dental 3D Printing Made Easy. I've been teaching since 2004. You may have seen our site, digitalenamel.com, which I am co-founder with Dr. Todd Ehrlich. So check it out. We're also on Facebook and Instagram. And of course, if you want to learn more about 3D printing, come to the 3D Printing Party Online. You can find us on Facebook, and that is 12 CE units. It's about 12 hours long. There's tons and tons of great stuff, lots of STLs, lots of PDFs you can download, and we go through everything involved in 3D printing. So you want to get started doing some full arch implant stuff, but you should stop for a second and ask yourself a couple of questions. First, how are you going to do it? You've got a Trios 3. Can I just start scanning and sending it to a lab? No. So I'm going to go over some of the steps that you can do to make your scans a lot more accurate. How many visits? So I've done some hybrids over the 20 plus years I've been in dentistry using the conventional corrected cast polyvinyl, taking an impression, and I've done them in 4 visits and I've done them in 14 visits. We're down to about 2 or 3 visits doing it digital, and we'll talk about the difference between doing it in 2 visits and the risks involved. How do I get the bite? Well, that is the toughest thing, and we're going to go over that. What material? There's tons of materials. There's zirconia, there's metal bars, there's PMMA, there's some of the enhanced polymers like Pecton, lots of stuff out there and different ones to choose in different situations. What software am I going to use? Well, if you're going to design it, it's kind of up to you. I would recommend getting it designed by a digital designer or having a lab do it for you. And there's exocad, 3Shape, Dental Wings, there's a whole bunch of softwares. Do I want to take my scans at the multi-unit level or the fixture level? If you're not familiar with what a multi-unit is, we'll be going over this. This is a little thing that you screw in an implant that moves the margin basically to the height of your gingiva and corrects for angulation. Fixture level, you're taking a scan right on the implant like you would a single case. What's photogrammetry? We're going to talk a lot about photogrammetry later on. You might have seen the little dominoes online with the PIC or the iMetric system. And do you want to be a do-it-yourselfer or do you want to send stuff out? I've done it different ways. So I've sent some stuff out to be designed by a designer and printed the try-in and then sent that to the lab, and my lab's given me a discount on designing it. Or I've just sent stuff straight to a lab, and it's sort of up to you. If you want to design it, mill it, good for you. That's really not for me and not the scope of the course. So we all know that impressions suck and patients hate them. There's quite a bit of distortion that you can get. And we've been told by various publications that single tooth implant scans are just as accurate, if not more accurate, than taking an impression. However, once we get across the arch, that's where things get kind of dicey. And I'll show you some ways and different systems that you can use to make your life a lot easier. Before we get into the digital hybrids, let's talk about the way we did it before. So the way of taking an impression is called the corrected cast technique. What you do is you start by taking an impression, either multi-unit level or fixture level, depending on your final restoration. This is called a mirror tray. It's a pretty cool little tray with a little membrane that allows closed tray impression coatings to pop out. You send to a lab. The lab will give you two things. They'll give you these little jigs that are luted together in the mouth with composite or acrylic and a custom tray to pick everything up. This is the way they look in the mouth. You take a second impression, obviously, with the custom tray, and the lab actually breaks the initial cast and moves the implants into a more corrected position. This is due to the fact that PVS impressions contract. We're dealing with innies here instead of outies like you would with a big bridge. So any sort of distortion will throw your entire case off. The model work alone on a corrected cast can cost you up to $1,500. So it's a great savings both for dentists and for labs to go completely digital. So let's first talk about intraoral scanners. And if you're familiar or not familiar with intraoral scanners, the way that they scan in the mouth is by seeing how light or a laser distorts as it hits an object. These individual pictures are stitched together into one larger picture, just like taking a panoramic picture on your iPhone. If you get a little crazy and go too far, then you won't have the computer or your iPhone won't have the ability to kind of merge those pictures together. So that's done with an intraoral scanner or with an iPhone in about 10 images. But when we get into intraoral scans, that's usually about 300 to 500 images for a complete arch. And as the computer stitches together, it introduces slight inaccuracies. So the cross-arch trueness. So let's talk about lab scanners. So the way that lab scanners work is you've got a very controlled environment and they're extraoral. So a model rotates, you maybe take about 50, 60 images. There's no spit or blood or patient movements. And these are accurate up to 5 microns. An intraoral scanner, and I got a little cut off last time, but we can talk about cross-arch trueness. Because we're taking so many images and there's so many images to stitch, that the best cross-arch accuracy is probably around 60 microns. These lab scanners are much better at about 5 microns. So I mentioned something called photogrammetry before, and what photogrammetry basically is an extraoral scanner that only reads black and white dots. So it looks at these little dominoes and infers the positions of the implants based on the number of dots on these dominoes. So if you use this in conjunction with an intraoral scanner, you can get really, really accurate scans for your hybrids. One thing that you got to think about, I might be putting the cart before the horse here, is that you need to be able to link different models with fiducial markers. So this patient here has a converted all-on-4 denture, and this is recording the patient's bite, it's recording patient's midline, it's recording the amount of teeth display, and labs can use that as a reference. Think about this. In the image of the upper right, we just have a bunch of scan bodies. So how are you going to get the jaw relationship from just a bunch of scan bodies? Well, we do it with composites. So this is liquid dam. We can use this to put around a rubber dam clamp to seal up the area, and we commonly use it in chairside whitening. And so these little dots can be read by the scanner software or by Exocad or 3Shape to relate models. So what do I do? So the first thing I do is I start with the face scan, and we'll get a little bit more into face scans. But if you have an iPhone, there's a great app called Bellus 3D. That's spelled Bellus 3D. And it captures the patient's face, and you want them smiling big. We do 2 face scans, one smiling big and one with retractors in it. And so that's our first line of defense. You also can take a full face photo. Then we figure out how to get the patient's bite, and we'll talk about the different ways we get the patient's bite. In the image of the upper right, the patient had an upper and lower overdenture with a palate and very little areas of reference. And so we can make a duplicate of the patient's upper and lower dentures in bite and construct this little jig for the patient to bite into. Then we scan the arch, and depending on the system you use, which implant you use, and which scan body you use, we link all these images together in software like Exocad or 3Shape. So the big goal in sort of hybrids right now is, can we get this down to a 2-appointment deal? Just like patient comes in, you scan a scan body, you send it out to a lab, you get a crown back. Can we do the same thing in zirconia? Can we do a full arch hybrid? The answer is, yeah, you can, if you're feeling lucky. And so basically, zirconia or pecton hybrids are really expensive. So if you scan the patient, bring them back to deliver the final prosthesis, and the midline's off or the bite's really off, you pretty much have to start all over again. So I don't recommend 2-appointment hybrids, but in this case we did. And this gentleman over here is in a clinic where I learned how to do everything. So it's called Brighter Way, and Brighter Way served a homeless place. It serves low-income veterans and various battered women's charities. And we did all this dentistry for free. So in a year, I donated about $700,000 worth of hybrids. We worked with some great labs, including Burbank Dental Lab, who donated all the hybrids for us, or all the lab work for us. So you can see here, we took a scan. This was done in the CIREC Prime Scan, utilizing the little scan bodies that you see on the middle picture that look like healing abutments, and these dominoes that were read by the iMetric scanner. Burbank Dental Lab donated this case for us. You can see the upper and lower. We got the bite by the patient's existing converted all-on-4 denture. You can see here that we got the midline right, we've got the shade right, and the tooth display right, and this was done in just 2 appointments. One thing that was really cool about this case is there was really no adjustments. And I know that sounds like I'm embellishing, but there was nothing. Because the bite was recorded digitally, and we were so, we can reproduce that, we got really, really lucky. Here's another case that we did in Brighter Way. So this was a patient from the homeless shelter, and he had an existing all-on-4. They teach classes at Brighter Way. Dr. Joe Moranafar with Dental Angels did this case here. And so the implants were placed on the lower right. You can see the healing abutments we used and the little dominoes. The kind of cool gray Terminator looking image of the upper and lower is the iMetric software, which works in conjunction with Exocad. It also works with 3Shape as well. Burbank Dental designed this case for us. Now, we did this case as a 3-appointment hybrid, and this is my preferred way of doing it. Scan the patient day 1, deliver PMMA temporaries day 2 and see how they look and how the patient feels with it. So the bite was perfect, the fit was great. However, you can see that he's really showing too much gingiva. So we were able to go back, redesign the case, now with zirconia, and we have less gingival display. The bite was great. Again, minimal occlusal adjustments. I'm blown away that we can do full arch hybrid cases, and the adjustment is maybe about 2 or 3 minutes. The bite is usually really perfect. So one of the cool things about Brighter Way, besides helping these great patients out, was all the patients came in with existing restoration from either the GPR program that was there or from the classes that Dr. Joe Moranafar taught. And we were able to kind of play around with different materials, play around with different strategies on how to scan. The patient, was getting an upgrade from the restorations they had. Usually these were PMMA converted dentures that were starting to break down. Now this gentleman here lost his upper denture, so we had no way of getting the patient's bite. So one of the cool things about my time that I spent there, probably spent about 1.5 years volunteering, was I could see some cool stuff on the internet, or I could go to a lecture, and I could test out what the lecturer was saying. So I went to the True Abutment Symposium, and the speaker was a prosthodontist, and he did not like digital hybrids. But he showed a case in which he did kind of a cool concept where you use these little bars. It's called All-on-T. And these little bars were actually cemented in a zirconia framework. And he showed a case, patient had no teeth at all, and got all the way through till the end. And so I went up to him afterwards and I said, hey, how'd you get the bite? And he said, oh, I just used the rule of facial thirds. And so if you hook your thumb under your nose and put your forefinger on the bridge of your nose, and then take that dimension underneath your nose to the bottom of your chin, that should be your VDO. And so I thought, let's give it a try. And so we didn't have any fancy gauges. So basically I made some measurements on the patient, had him open big, and shoved a bunch of blue mousse in there. And so that way I was hoping that I could open up the patient to the facial thirds. And you can actually buy a gauge like this, and it's usually about $70 or $80. You can buy it on eBay. And so we went ahead and did this. Now, if you look at the scanned body image, you can see here we went implant level on this case. And I really think I got lucky. It's super duper easy to scan the upper. It's not that easy to scan the lower. I don't like doing implant level simply because there's so much gum tissue in the way. We're dealing with an internal connection instead of a rounded dome that you would get from a multi-unit. So, got lucky on this case? Well, sort of. So this is what I got back from the lab. And if you can see here, my midline is off by 2 central incisors. I mean, look at where his 2 front teeth are relative to his nose. So when, the patient bit down on that blue mousse, there was no way of training the patient's jaw to go straight up and down. So he basically bit sideways. And that's how the lab thought the upper and lower jaw were linked together. So I would not recommend just shooting some blue mousse in there and going for it. There's got to be another way. So I went online. There's a great site called Keep Sirecking. And there was a doc who restored a hybrid. And what he just did was he just stuck the scan bodies in. These scan bodies are about 12 millimeters tall, about the height of a tooth. And he just had the patient bite on the scan bodies. So I thought, well, round 2, let's give it another try. Lab redesigned the case. And the images on the lower are what I got back. So the midline is still off. The bite wasn't bad. There was some bite adjustment, but it wasn't great either. Also, with this patient, I wanted to test out another theory I heard. So if you're not familiar, a tie base is a metal insert that gets glued into the hybrid. And so what one person said was, well, look, if you're just scanning straight up, in this case was done with Trios 3, you're going to get some cross-arch inaccuracy. So why not just open up a little spacer, either drill it out or add it in the software, to where the tie bases get cemented and cement everything in the patient's mouth. Good in theory, not in practice. So you got to really haul ass. So you've got to get all these kind of with glue into the hybrid, remove any excess, get it into the patient's mouth, and get them all screwed down in probably about 2 or 3 minutes. So we made it work with this case, but I would not advise doing that. So what about removable? And so here's a case where we did upper and lower bar overdentures. And if you're not familiar with a bar overdenture, it's basically a bar that screws into multi-units, and you can have all sorts of attachments on it. In this case, we went with locators. And so this patient had an existing upper and lower overdenture, and we wanted to give him something smaller. So we scanned him. This was scanned in CIREC. And now we got to get the bite. So I showed this image earlier, and let me just show you what we did. So what you do is you take the patient's upper and lower denture, put some blue mousse, and get the bite recorded. Scan that in a cone beam. And so instead of using a lab scanner or an intraoral scanner, I scanned it in a cone beam. And in the Blue Sky software model editing feature, you can take DICOM files and convert them to a 3D printed file. In Mesh Mixer, I cut out the front of the denture and left anything kind of distal to the second premolars and had the patient bite into this. The lab was able to design upper and lower bars, and we tried the bars in. They fit great, and we were able to make him upper and lower overdentures without a palate and with metal reinforcement. Now, so we showed a bunch of zirconia, but one type of hybrid that I really like is a metal bar with acrylic or composite or PMMA that's milled. What I like about it is it's repairable. And so in this case here, we had a patient who had an existing hybrid, lost some bone around it, so he's got a bunch of space that packs food, and he broke a tooth. I just did a pickup impression. The lab stripped off everything, was able to add the tooth and add some more acrylic to this. So this patient here is a great patient. He's got a great story. He was homeless at the shelter, got his teeth fixed in Dr. Moranifar's class, and was able to get work, get his life back together, and he now works at the dental clinic. This guy is a really big guy. He's about 6'7", and breaks everything. He's broken PMMA, he's broken zirconia. And so we decided to go with a metal bar with a PMMA overlay on this patient because if I'm not there, I want someone to be able to fix it. Now, with a hybrid like the one I just showed, any denture technician can add teeth to it or add acrylic to it. Sometimes you can even do that intraorally. And so we scanned the patient. This was done in CIREC without using photogrammetry. You can definitely do that. I'm finding that tall scan bodies like the ones you see lead to less accurate results. So BioHorizons has a really nice, really short scan body that seems to be working pretty well without photogrammetry. So if you're a prime scan user, definitely try that. If you feel like things aren't fitting, you may want to look at photogrammetry. If you're a Trios or a Meta user or an iTero, you'll definitely have to use photogrammetry. And so the lab went ahead, this was done by Burbank Dental Lab, designed the bars and designed some sort of wax overlays that we could try everything in. And I think Burbank Dental Lab did a great job on this. And so now he has a completely repairable set of hybrids. So anything goes wrong, just unscrew these babies and you're good to go. So thank you for listening. If you want to learn more about 3D printing, you can go ahead and go on Facebook and just type in 3D Printing Party, or just find me at augustdds@gmail.com.